and welcome to another book review with Alice. I'm your host, Alice. Duh. Do you like my new scarf? It's sparkly and I'm wearing it just for you. So today is part one of a two-part book review series because the book in question is my copy of Dracula and Frankenstein, which is both stories in one book, and it's a illustrated one that I actually got when I was like 12 years old. And I still have it and I honestly love it. Oh my God, this book is 25 years old. I'm so old. Anyway, I decided that since we're getting a little bit closer to spooky season, I would review the first spooky books that I read, which was Frankenstein and Dracula. And so this week we're going to talk about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which honestly is the first book that got me to love fantasy, like sci-fi type books. So yay for Mary Shelley. She not only got me interested in reading them, but she also eventually got me interested in writing them. And she is one of my heroes in regards to being a woman who went against the times and did what she was passionate about. So the story of Frankenstein is a classic. For those of you who don't know, it deals with Dr. Frankenstein, who steals body parts and makes a monster and then brings it to life. I'm like pretty sure that you have all heard of Frankenstein. If you have not, I pity you and you need to go and find yourself a Frankenstein movie to watch because yeah, more pictures. Let me see if I can find one of the monster. There, the monster watching Dr. Frankenstein. But one of the things that I love about Frankenstein is that first time when I read it, I just read it as a 12-year-old. It was the story about the monster, and I felt like Dr. Frankenstein was mean and that the monster like was scary and bad and everybody was guilty. But when I reread it, and that's the other thing too, is I don't reread books, but I have read this one 3 times. I read it when I was 12 and I got the book. I read it again either in high school or early university, and then I read it the end of university. And so my opinion of the book has never changed. I've always loved the story, but how I interpret it and what I think of the depth of the story has changed in my times of reading it. So like I said, the first time the monster was scary, Dr. Frankenstein was wrong and blah blah, but now as an adult in that, I do see the way that Mary Shelley wrote such an in-depth story where she is looking at humanity and that the monster made no decision to become what he is. He didn't ask to be born, he didn't ask to be created the way that he was, and yet society and the people there judge him immediately and are making him a monster, and yet he ends up becoming what they judge him to be. But then the question becomes, who is the bigger monster? Is it Dr. Frankenstein, who created the monster and then abandoned him, or is it the monster itself that has been pieced together by different body parts in that and becomes the creature that he is and ends up becoming the monster of circumstance in that? So yeah, I'm getting all deep on you now. Look at me using that literature part of my degree. But I do enjoy the story because it does make you think a lot deeper about humanity in that. While the story, the sci-fi aspect to it of the monster being brought to life and the science fiction for there is fantastic, the thought process you go through of looking at humanity, which is one of the things that not all fantasy or sci-fi books can actually make you look at the world differently. Fable did not make me look at the world. A Court of Thorns and Roses did not make me look at the world. But Frankenstein made me look at humanity and wonder, why are we so judgmental of things that are different? And so that is one of the beauties that is Frankenstein, is it does make you reevaluate the way that you look at the world and the way that the world sees things, because you have to ask yourself at the end of the story, who was really the monster? Was it Dr. Frankenstein who made the monster, or was it Frankenstein who was the monster that was created? And was he actually born a monster, or did he become a monster because that's what people expected him to be, and because he couldn't communicate with us and we shun things that are different? I don't know. You have to read the book and make your own judgment call on it. I, for one, end up feeling sorry for the monster now as an adult because he didn't ask to be that way. And yes, he acts out violently, but we all act out violently when things happen. And with what we know now about mental health struggles and that, back in the day they didn't know that, but now we do. And I wonder if the monster is just, now we can almost see it as a representation of mental health and that we're all different, and this one is just a physical difference. So yeah, I really love the story. If you've never read it, I would strongly recommend reading it in October for Spooky Month, because it's a little hard to get through. It is a little bit more written like olden times, but it's a really great story, and it's gonna make you think, which a lot of scary books don't really do these days. So check it out, and yeah, come back next week when I review Dracula, which is the other half of this one by Bram Stoker. So thanks so much for stopping by, and happy reading. Boo.